its way to the north of the UK, and this cold front is driving south, introducing colder air across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But it does mean here it'll be a bit brighter through the afternoon with some sunshine. Lots of showers, though, packing into the north and the west. Mostly of rain at this stage, and we've got this line of rain on the weather fronts, clearing away from southern Scotland, but turning damp over northwest England, north and west Wales. Much of the south, dry and cloudy, 1 or 2 showers for Kent and the southwest. And temperatures here might creep up to double figures, but colder air is following on from this band of wet weather, this cold front. As it continues to track southwards through the evening, the rain could pep up for a time over South Wales and southwest England. Clearer skies following, and the showers turning more and more wintry over the hills of northern Scotland. Even some snow to low levels for a time, and strong winds as well. And a much colder feel for Thursday morning. Temperatures in most towns and cities may just be above freezing, but it's going to feel cold with that wind. And then generally it's a fine and sunny day to come tomorrow for most. We'll keep wintry showers going over northern Scotland, although the winds may ease a little through the day. A few showers grazing the east coast of England, and 1 or 2 for West Wales and maybe southwest England also. But for the vast majority, it's a sunny but cold day. Temperatures struggling 7, 8 at best. Add on that wind and it feels even colder. And we're not done with the winds, because they're going to strengthen further. This low pressure heading south will bring colder air come the end of the week, and those isobars really squeezing together. Initially across Scotland on Friday, we have a Met Office warning in place for that. And then more widely on Saturday across the UK, some very strong gusty winds, the potential for some disruption, and there could be a bit of snow mixed in as well.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hi, I'm Alistair Stewart, and I really hope that you can join me here on GB News. I've been in this game for 40 years and I've made lots of friends. I try and reflect what they think about the big stories of the day in conversation with me. That's why we call it Alistair Stewart and Friends, and you're a key part of it as well. I always get inundated with emails and messages and texts, and if they're really good, I play them back to you. 12 till 3 every Saturday and Sunday.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's time to debate the big issues of the day with me, Patrick Christys, standing in, of course, for Liam Halligan and Gloria De Piero, plus a whole host of experts.
Today we are asking if Patrick remembers to press the button.
Yeah, sorry, I forget that I've actually got a job to do.
Neither of us are very good at this, bear with us. Should private schools be abolished? I didn't go to one, you might be able to tell. He did. I couldn't tell, actually, so maybe you didn't get your money's worth.
No.
We have different views on this, and we'll hear from those who are divided on whether they create inequality. It's a yes from me. Or social mobility. It's a yes
from me. Exactly. Good debate.
That's after the news.
Your top stories at 2 then. Boris Johnson has been defending his social care plan after Labour accused him of creating a working class dementia tax at Prime Minister's questions. Earlier this week, the government voted through plans to change how contributions are calculated towards an £86,000 limit for social care. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said the measures would impact poorest people hardest and lead to people selling their homes to pay for care.
Working people are being asked to pay twice. During their working lives, they'll pay much more tax in national insurance, whilst those living off wealth are protected. And then when they retire, Mr. Speaker, they face having to sell their home when the wealthiest won't have to do so.
We're delivering for the working people of this country. We're delivering for the people of this country. And we're fixing the problems that they thought could never be fixed. We're doing the things that they thought were impossible.
Meanwhile, the Commons Speaker has requested a review into whether MPs can take babies into the chamber. The move comes after Labour's Stella Creasy was told she can't take her 3-month-old son into the Commons. So Lindsay Hoyle stressed it's extremely important that parents can fully participate in parliamentary work. Stella Creasy said she welcomes the review and hopes the move makes parenting and politics possible to mix. The government is planning to pass a new law which will mean anyone who kills an emergency service worker while that worker is on duty will face a mandatory life sentence. Called Harper's Law, the government wants to change the legislation following a 2-year campaign by Lizzie Harper. She's the husband of PC Andrew Harper, who was killed while answering a late-night burglary call. 3 teenagers were cleared of murder but convicted of manslaughter. The World Health Organisation's warned that a further 700,000 people could die from COVID across Europe by March. That would take the total number of deaths in Europe to more than 2.2 million. It's also confirmed that COVID-related deaths have doubled to almost 4,200 a day since September. 2 men have been arrested after the body of a woman was found in the hunt for missing Plymouth teenager Bobby Ann McLeod. Devon and Cornwall police said that a body had been found during searches for the 18-year-old. Bobby Ann McLeod left her home in Liam around 6 p.m. on Saturday to meet friends in the city centre, but she never arrived. The police say the discovery of a body was weighing heavy on the people of Plymouth. One of the world's top footballers, France and Real Madrid forward Karim Benzema, has been convicted of trying to help blackmail a former international teammate. The 33-year-old had been given a 1-year suspended jail term and ordered to pay a fine equivalent to £63,000. Prosecutors argued that he encouraged Mathieu Valbuena to pay a suspected group of blackmailers in order to keep a sex tape out of the public eye. Benzema wasn't in court but denies any wrongdoing and will appeal the verdict. An 8-year-old boy has become the 6th person to die after an SUV drove into a Christmas parade in the United States. He's the only child so far to have died in the incident in Wisconsin. Darrell Brooks Jr. has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. 62 people were also injured. Police have ruled out terrorism as a motive. The Home Office should be stripped of responsibility for the Windrush compensation scheme. That's according to a cross-party group of MPs. The Home Affairs Committee found what it says were a litany of flaws in the way the department operates. It's recommended the scheme is transferred to an independent organisation so claimants have more trust in it. As of the end of September, only 20% of the estimated 15,000 eligible claimants had applied, with only 5% receiving any compensation. And NASA has launched a spacecraft to try and crash into an asteroid in a bid to change its course.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
The target isn't a threat, but scientists hope if it's successful, they'll learn things which will help them stop hazardous asteroids in the future. The collision is looking to change the speed of the asteroid and therefore change its trajectory. The spacecraft is due to meet the asteroid next September. You're up to date with the latest news here on Earth. We'll have more for you at 2:30.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Now, coming up today on the show, we're discussing private education, which is something I actually had. Gloria didn't, not that you can tell, of course. And we have differing views on the matter. We'll give you our opinion and hear from those who are divided on the issue as we ask, should private schools be abolished?
It's not just our guests, or in fact us, that we want to hear from. Join the debate with your view. You're the important ones in this conversation. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. So, we start today with an issue which divides opinion, not just in the wider society, but right here on GB News. Take a look at this.
Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, doesn't he look lovely? Don't they look dashing?
Wonder when you're going to wheel that one out, you know.
I came across the picture on Twitter. My co-presenter for the week dressed up to the nines at an all-boys reunion dinner, and I grabbed you, didn't I, in the
you did
in the corridor just as because you come off air on your morning shows. I'm about to come out on air. I went, Patrick, I didn't know you went to posh school. And he had a go at me.
Well, I didn't have a go. I kind of think that gets back to HR. You want to watch it? No, but I did. No, yes, I did. But it's an interesting one though, because what we can't quite see, I think, because of the strap at the bottom there of this picture of me and my friends, is how terrible all of our shoes are. So like you can tell that it's not the poshest of school reunions. One of them's not even got a tux on. But yeah, there you go.
Is that your defence?
Yeah, and therefore private education is brilliant. No, but it's interesting though, because in that picture, I won't obviously go into too much detail because they've got their own private lives to lead and stuff. But you'd be surprised really how many people in that picture were on some form of financial help just to get to the school, bursaries, etc. And what some of them are doing now. And I think that's something we'll get stuck into.
We will. Yeah, we could talk about this all. But we need to bring in our guests.
We do. Yes, and obviously my main take on it anyway is that it helps with social mobility. But we will be talking about.
Well, how come you got the last word? You can't then just say, well, my main take on it is this, and then just expect me to go, right, OK, no, we will return to that.
Yeah, OK.
But, you know, it's social mobility for those that can afford social mobility. Nice.
OK.
Indeed, a study published today has found that those who go to private schools are 50 times more likely to go to one of the top universities like Oxford, Cambridge or the London School of Economics.
Yes, but the Sutton Trust and the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who did the research, found that the proportion of private school students at top universities has actually halved since the mid-noughties. So there's very much two sides to this, and we'll be getting stuck into both of them, won't we?
And we're delighted now to be joined by Liberal Democrat MP for Edinburgh West, Christine Jardine. Private schools, it's just buying privilege, isn't it, Christine?
Nope. No, sorry, I don't agree. I think that the problem with the debate over private schools is that it's become oversimplified. And the Labour Party say, we'll abolish it and it'll solve the problem. No, it won't. It won't. Because private schools, doing away with them would just mean that you had more of a burden on the state sector and the same number of people paying for it. You have to find a way of improving social mobility in this country. You have to find a way of ensuring that everybody gets the best education. And the solution is for the government to invest more in state education. I have to declare an interest, Gloria. My daughter went to an independent school, and it was because our father and I didn't know we might be moving from, one catchment area to another when she was growing up. So we thought, well, we need her to go to the same school right through. We chose a school which has a good system of providing bursaries, was originally what they called the town school in Glasgow. It was designed specifically to encourage social mobility by, having, kids get granted places who were at state schools. That's originally what it was for and out through. And let's remember, the Labour Party tried this before. They did away with all of the private schools in Scotland and it didn't work. What happens is you simply put more pressure on the state sector. That's all that happens. You need to invest in the state sector.
Yeah, if private schools were such a bad thing, then it's amazing how many Labour MPs send their kids to them, isn't it?
Oh, hang on.
What?
How many do?
Diane Abbott's the big one.
Yeah. No, she does, but actually I don't think there are many.
Oh, really? Okay,
Christine is the important person.
The other thing to bear in mind, the other thing to bear in mind for me is choice. You can't say to people, you can't do. You should make the state sector so good that parents want to choose the state sector. The fact that parents are not choosing the state sector is indicative of the problems that we have and that we should be addressing. That we should, our kids have lost millions of hours combined, millions of hours of personal in-time, classroom time through COVID-19. Now we need to invest in that and catching up. And that's where our attention should be, not going after some iconic, monolith and saying, oh, well, all the problems of education would be solved if we did away with the private sector. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. An accountant would probably tell you that you will have tens of thousands of extra places to provide on the same tax take. So what are you going to do, put up everybody's taxes? If you send your child to private school at the moment, you pay twice. You pay your taxes and you pay the private fees. That's fine. If you want to do that, that is your choice. But we have to remember that the priority should be ensuring that the best possible state education is available for the children, for everybody in this country. And it should be everybody's first choice because it's the best. And that should be the priority.
Well, I must admit that at my school, there was about 40% of people who, in every school year, who were on some form of financial help, either a full bursary, half bursary, whatever. And it wasn't actually just about things like the quality of education, which we were very lucky to have a very good education, but it's also things like the quality of sports on offer and things like that as well, but that I think is tremendous. And, that was something that teaches you a lot of things, doesn't it? It teaches you about competition, about teamwork, about all this kind of stuff. And, if you're there and you're on a full bursary, then, you're not had any unfair privilege, have you? I don't know. I'm trying to drag you into it. Christine, what do you think? Because for some people who might say that anyone who goes to a private school has had some kind of unfair privilege.
Of course they have.
No, I don't think you can say that anyone who's gone to private school has unfair privilege. And there are different types of, again, it's a simplistic argument. Private schools, it's all privilege. It's all rich people who go there. Anyone who goes there, it's unfair. I didn't go to an independent school. I went to a state school, and it hasn't done me any harm. And people choose to send their children to independent schools for different reasons. And sometimes it's nothing to do with privilege. But, we live in a democracy where we give people the choice over how they run their own lives. And if someone has the money to pay for an independent education, then they should be able to do it. But as long as that independent school is also contributing to the community, it's providing bursaries, and it's doing its bit for social mobility, that's important. Let me come in. I'm desperate to ask, which private school was it you went to?
He went to
Manchester Grammar School for Boys, founded in 1515. Thank you very much. Yes.
Not as good as Yorkshire Martyrs, now being abolished in France. I put it.
Because it got burned down, probably. Didn't it?
I think it has subsequently. The building has had some issues with fire damage, but you don't need to know that. I put this to you, Christine, that people are buying privilege, because look at the figures. 7% of the country's population are privately educated. Private school pupils go on to make up 65% of senior judges, 61% of doctors, 43% of the UK's 100 most influential editors and broadcasters. That's bad for us all. It's bad for us all. There's as much talent on a council estate as a country estate, but we're enabling.
Liz, I agree with you on that. I agree with you there, because I came from a council estate in Clydebank originally. I agree with you there. And I think it's important that we have that talent. And I think it's important that schools look for that talent, whether they're in the state sector or the independent sector. But we can't blame the fact that our state schools are, in some areas, not all of them, there are some fantastic state schools, but we can't solve any issues that they might be facing by doing away with the private sector. We need to focus on the state schools. We need to, I know I've said this already today, but I do feel it's the whole nub of the argument. The government needs to invest more in education. And it needs, the catch-up funding that the government provided in the budget is only £5 billion. Their own advisor said it had to be 15 billion. That's where the problem is coming. That's how we need to address it. We need more funding.
Look, I agree, and I think I absolutely agree, and I think it's unquestionable that the state school sector needs massive improvement, massive funding, absolutely, and it needs to be levelled up, which is something that Boris Johnson seems to be keen on doing, allegedly. But I do think that the first job of any parent is to try to ensure that their own child is safe. And I must say, when I first came down to London, I was very, very. I was with someone at the time who was a teacher at quite a rough comprehensive school down here.
Tough, not rough.
I don't know. You haven't heard some of those stories, but I was amazed. I would not have felt comfortable sending my child there because I wouldn't necessarily be entirely sure whether or not they'd come home, right? And so I think it's only understandable, isn't it, that some parents, if they want to,
if they can afford to, not if they want to, if they can afford to.
Well, if they can afford to, yeah, or if their child gets a bursary, something like that, maybe there's an element of just wanting your child to be safe that private schools can offer as well.
Well, I think that's an unfair description of most state schools in this country. I went to state school in an underprivileged area, and I was never anything but safe at school. And my family and friends who are teachers would probably take exception to that because they're all in the state sector. But what I would say is that it doesn't. What you actually described is the other problem that we have with education in this country. Now, I can't speak for England, but in Scotland, what we have discovered is that with the whole, parents having choice about which schools they send their children to, and the catchment areas and the league tables surrounding schools that have developed over the past 20, 30 years mean that you buy privilege when you buy your house. You buy a house in an area that has a high-ranking school, so you push up the prices in that area. And that, to me, is, that's unfair as well, because that is creating a kind of postcode elitism. Certainly from what I've seen, my child goes to whatever state school because it's high in the league. They'll get good results because I was able to afford to pay for a better house. That's a different way. Now, we have all sorts of problems in this country which are beginning to undermine social mobility. Now, I believe absolutely in social mobility.
Christy's frozen then.
She's been cut off in a prime.
Christy, yeah, I wanted to thank her actually because I think it's quite brave. It's not an easy gig to be a politician and come on and defend private schools. So
yeah, fair play.
If you can hear me, Christine, that's what I intended to say to you.
Well, there you go. I'm sure she'll watch you back. But yes, well, we're going to move on now and talk to a spokesperson for the Campaign for State Education. So I think we can imagine that there'll be a different view to the one just expressed there by the wonderful Christine. It's Michael Pike. Michael, thank you very much. I mean, look, obviously we're posing the big question, aren't we? Should private schools be abolished? What are your thoughts?
Yes, can I just start by saying I've got a really bad cold, so I might collapse in the middle of a paroxysm of sneezes, in which case I apologise in advance. Christine says that what we need to do is focus on state schools and make them as good as private schools. And the problem is people have been saying that for 150 years, and it's never, ever happened. And you might wonder why it's never ever happened. And one reason it's never ever happened is that most of the people that make the decisions have been to private schools in the first place. So I think you will go on for another 150 years with people saying the same thing. That, what we've got to do is provide state schools with the same quality as private schools. There is no way that the public purse can ever compete with the sort of wealth that the most prestigious and expensive private schools have got. There is simply no way. I mean, take something simple like music. The school I worked in for most of my time had 3 upright pianos, which were not very often in tune, and a few glockenspiels. Eton College has 8 pipe organs, just 8 pipe organs. Their peripatetic music teaching includes stuff, believe it or not, includes things like the didgeridoo. Eton College has got 400 acres of playing fields. It's got an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Now, the idea that you can introduce resources of this level, or even 1/10 of this level, into state secondary schools is simply for the birds. It can't be done.
Michael, let me come in because my heart is with you, but we have a problem. People who think that private schools should be abolished. That is that neither of the.
I didn't say private schools should be abolished. By the way, no one has asked me.
I did.
Yeah, that was a question that you were answering. But, well, in fact, you
go on, answer it.
So I think they should, but it ain't going to happen. So I'm wondering what to do and how we reduce social inequality.
Sorry, go on.
So basically, my point to you was that my heart is with you. I agree with you, basically. But the fact is that either of the parties that are going to form the government of this country, they ain't going to do it. So I was going to ask you if there is anything practical that we can do to reduce inequality while private schools continue to exist, or is it just impossible to even try and level that playing field while these schools exist?
OK, well, 2 points. I mean, first of all, let's be clear. The education system, however unequal, doesn't create inequality in this society. It might reinforce it and perpetuate it, but it doesn't create it. If you want a more equal society, you've got to look at other things than the education system. The second thing is that it's very, very difficult with the electoral system we have for any political party in government to think in the long term. If you look at a society which has a much better education system than ours, namely Finland, now, they didn't abolish their private schools. What they did was they abolished fee paying. So schools are allowed to continue to be private, but they have to be paid for by the state. Consequently, the private schools in Finland don't have any extra resources compared with the state schools. And the result of that, of course, is that a vast majority of children go to the state schools. And, of course, you will be aware that compared with British schools, Finland has far, far superior educational outcomes. The other thing I'd like to say is you can't simply transform the education system by thinking crudely in terms of should we abolish private schools. The amount of investment that's needed in the state's education system in this country goes way beyond ideas like that.
Look, there are certain issues within the state school system at the moment. For example, a lot of people may or may not, but certainly a lot of people do, have an issue with the way that certain things are taught and certain things are characterised, especially when it comes to things like what's going on north of the border at the moment, Nicola Sturgeon, and various issues going on, especially in primary schools, for example, with the big trans discussions that are happening, etc., etc., etc. Some parents might want to actually pay for their children to go to a school where they get the kind, or they're taught in a way that they would approve of personally, because look, I've got to be honest with you, I think there is a lot of virtue signalling in the education system. The teachers are very heavily unionised, and some of that politics can seep through, can't it? What?
Well, that's what... That's exactly what happens in Finland. If you're not happy with with what's being taught in the state schools in Finland, you can send your child to a private school with a different ethos. But what you can't do is pay fees for it. What you can't do is shovel masses and masses of resources into this stuff. And I think another point that needs to be raised is that schools are not just places where you do or you don't get a good education, as indeed one of you admitted in the preamble. They are social institutions, and you can go to Eton and fail all your A-levels and still have far more chance of ending up in an elite job than if you went to an average state school and got 3 A-stars and a first from Cambridge. And there's plenty of research to demonstrate that.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, it's very nice to have you on the show. We're glad that you didn't sneeze. We're sorry for your cold and we wish you well. And thank you for contributing to our debate today. That was Michael Pike, the spokesperson for the Campaign for State Education.
Yes, indeed. Well, remember to join our debate. It's been lively in the inbox. I've been keeping a little eye on it, just every now and again.
Does everyone hate me?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's me they just... No, it's not really. Look, email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us @gbnews, where you can also vote on our Twitter poll. Should private schools be abolished? We'll read out your opinion and the results of the poll later on in the programme.
Up next, we're heading to Yorkshire to find out if changes to the universal credit rules will make a difference for those on low incomes. But just before that, it's time for your weather forecast.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. I'll get on to today's weather in just a moment, but just flagging that at the end of the week, some very windy weather is likely and things are going to be turning colder again as well, which brings the threat of a bit of snow also. But back to today, low pressure is swinging its way to the north of the UK, and this cold front is driving south, introducing colder air across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But it does mean here it'll be a bit brighter through the afternoon with some sunshine. Lots of showers, though, packing into the north and the west. Mostly of rain at this stage, and we've got this line of rain on the weather fronts, clearing away from southern Scotland, but turning damp over northwest England, north and west Wales. Much of the south, dry and cloudy, 1 or 2 showers for Kent and the southwest. And temperatures here might creep up to double figures, but colder air is following on from this band of wet weather, this cold front. As it continues to track southwards through the evening, the rain could pep up for a time over South Wales and southwest England. Clearer skies following, and the showers turning more and more wintry over the hills of northern Scotland, even some snow to low levels for a time, and strong winds as well, and a much colder feel for Thursday morning. Temperatures in most towns and cities may just be above freezing, but it's going to feel cold with that wind. And then generally it's a fine and sunny day to come tomorrow for most. We'll keep wintry showers going over northern Scotland, although the winds may ease a little through the day. A few showers grazing the east coast of England and 1 or 2 for West Wales and maybe southwest England also. But for the vast majority, it's a sunny but cold day. Temperatures struggling, 7, 8 at best. Add on that wind and it feels even colder. And we're not done with the winds because they're going to strengthen further. This low pressure heading south will bring colder air come the end of the week, and those isobars really squeezing together. Initially across Scotland on Friday, we have a Met Office warning in place for that. And then more widely on Saturday across the UK, some very strong gusty winds, the potential for some disruption, and there could be a bit of snow mixed in as well.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, Monday to Thursday from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. We don't lecture to you or try to tell you what to think. We do a deep delve into a topic with views from across the range of debate, therefore leaving you, the viewer, to make up your own mind. Join me, Alex Phillips, for the afternoon agenda on GB News, 4 till 6, Monday to Thursday. You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage. I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. Remember to send us your emails on our debate. Should private schools be abolished? This debate was prompted by a little ding-dong that Patrick and I had in the corridor the other day. Email GBViews. Go up a bit. GBNews at GB.
The email address.
I could never remember it. At gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBNews, where you can also cast your vote on our Twitter poll.
Yes, you can indeed. Around 2 million universal credit claimants could be £1,000 a year better off under new rules that came into force today to ensure more people can benefit before Christmas.
But campaigners say there's still the possibility that not every family in Britain can afford to put presents under the tree this year. Figures show that child poverty is set to rise due to a combination of pandemic job cuts and rises in energy bills and the cost of living.
Yes, indeed. Well, in Yorkshire, child poverty has actually increased. It's estimated that a quarter of children are now growing up in poverty in Barnsley. Good. But one local business has made it their mission that no child in the town goes without a gift at Christmas. And our reporter, Anna Riley, has the story.
With Christmas almost a month away now, it's a time that a lot of us are looking forward to, spending time with family and friends and loved ones, and it feels almost extra special this year due to the restrictions of lockdown that were placed on Christmas last December. But for some, Christmas is going to be a struggle, and sadly not every child in the UK will have a present under the tree this year as their families are unable to afford it. Child poverty is already on the rise, and there's fears that this is going to increase even more as a result of pandemic job losses, the rise in the cost of living and energy bills. And the charity Action for Children have said a child's considered to be growing up in poverty if they live in a household whose income is 60% below the average in a given year. Now, before the pandemic, 4.3 million children were living in poverty in the UK, and that was up 200,000 from the previous year. And currently, 31% of children in the UK live in poverty. And sadly, in Yorkshire as well, child poverty is on the rise. I spoke to the local MP for Barnsley East, Stephanie Peacock, and she told me that in this area around 1 in 4 children are growing up in poverty. But to help families in the area, one local business has launched a toy appeal to ensure that no child in the town goes without a gift on Christmas Day. I spoke to Tony Batty. He runs Tony's Barbers, and he runs the appeal as well alongside his friend Liam Hardcastle. And this is what Tony had to say.
We started it just beginning of at the end of COVID last year, November time, because everybody was like suffering. You know, there were people were on furlough, they'd no much money, and it was just an idea that we come up with to sort of try to give something back. Because 1 in 3 people was going to waking up on Christmas morning without a present, full poverty. Or the parents are struggling, especially nowadays with what's going off with the food. You know, the food bills have gone through the roof. Everything's gone through the roof, really. So we just set a little fund up to get. It meant to be a little fund up last year, and it ended up rocketing and going to like 5,000 presents from all over in Barnes. Everybody just were amazing. They just donated everything left, right, and centre. It were fantastic. Well, people are struggling really bad, but the community spirit's absolutely amazing. I've had old ladies come in my shop. One come other week. The first presents I got were this week when she gone into town, got a pension money and come back with 2 presents for me for kids. People try. You know, there's a fantastic community spirit in Barnsley. It's fantastic, especially when anything like this is happening. We all seem to pull together. It's great. You know, I mean, to waking up on Christmas Day morning without a present for some children, it must be heartbreaking. I mean, I couldn't imagine it. You know what I mean? It's horrible to see it and hear it. So if we can sort of put a smile on some children's faces and take that sadness away from a family, that's all you need, just a smiley face.
It's so heartwarming that people like Tony and the community in Barnsley are doing their bit to put smiles on children's faces on Christmas Day that might otherwise have gone without. And it's hoped that the changes to universal credit that have been announced today go some way to making sure that families have a good time on the big day.
Oh, thank you, Anna, for that. That's a really, really heartwarming story, isn't it? And hopefully people do donate, and no child should have to wake up on Christmas morning without any presents, that's for sure. Well, right, after this break, it's all about your opinion. So join the debate next on Piero and Halligan, this time with Christys. We'll also be talking about Stella Christys, the Labour MP who was told to stop bringing her baby into parliamentary debates. But first, it's the headline news.
Your top stories at just gone 2:30. Boris Johnson has been defending his social care plan after Labour accused him of creating a working-class dementia tax at Prime Minister's questions. Earlier this week, the government voted through plans to change how contributions are calculated towards an £86,000 limit for social care. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said the measures would impact poorest people hardest and lead to people selling their homes to pay for care. Some news that's broken in the past 10 minutes or so. 2 police officers who shared photos on WhatsApp of the bodies of 2 murdered sisters have been found guilty of gross misconduct. PC Jamie Lewis and PC Dennis Jaffa had admitted sharing images of the bodies of 46-year-old Biba Henry and 27-year-old Nicole Smallman. Jamie Lewis was dismissed from the Metropolitan Police at the pair's misconduct hearing, while Dennis Jaffa was told he would have been dismissed if he was still serving. The 2 sisters were found dead in bushes in Wembley in June last year. The officers had been assigned to protect the scene where the 2 women were discovered. The Commons Speaker has requested a review into whether MPs can take babies into the chamber. The move comes after Labour's Stella Creasy was told she can't take her 3-month-old son into the Commons. Stella Creasy said she welcomes the review and hopes the move makes parenting and politics possible to mix. A really rare Christmas tree has been picked for Parliament. The outsized Sitka spruce, which reaches 42 feet high, has been selected from England's biggest forest, Kielder. It's a 60,000 hectare site and one of the few places in the UK that can supply such tall Christmas trees. Despite that, the chances of finding a tree that big, like the one that's been picked for Parliament, are 1 in 150 million. You're up to date with the latest news. We'll have more for you in just over 20 minutes' time.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage. I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Yes, afternoon, everybody. Now, Parliament is going to review its rules on bringing babies into the House of Commons after an MP was reprimanded for taking her young son into a debate.
Stella Creasy, who featured on my show yesterday holding her baby son, has been told she should not have had her 3-month-old son in the House of Commons chamber while speaking in Westminster Hall debates.
Well, the Labour MP has responded saying she didn't have maternity cover or the employment rights to have maternity cover. She added that the situation as it stands is bad for our democracy. Well, we're now delighted to be joined by co-founder of parents campaign group Us For Them, Molly Kingsley. Molly, thank you very much for joining us. Well, where do you stand on this initial topic then? Do you think that she should be allowed to have a very small baby in the chamber?
Look, I mean, I think it's a really difficult issue. I think the first thing I'd say, having been in that position often myself, is that flexibility and understanding is required, particularly for, I think the baby is 3 months old. That's tiny. And it's still at an age, of course, where, you know, obviously she was breastfeeding and babies don't, you know, don't conform to other people's schedules. I think all of that said, you know, my personal view is that mixing work and very small children is not always the best idea, either for the children or just for productivity and getting things done. And I think really what this speaks to is the need for, you know, structural wholesale reform, not only of our childcare system and investment into that system, but also actually our parental leave system, which as it is puts a, you know, far too onerous burden on women. And actually also let's look at, you know, politics and how easy or otherwise it is for parents to be in politics, because, you know, one of the things we've seen throughout the pandemic is that the parent voice has not been represented. And when we hear things like this, we begin to understand why that might be.
I guess the complication is for members of Parliament is that the one thing only you can do, your office, and this is, I say this from my own experience, and I didn't take maternity leave because I haven't got children, but your office can handle a lot of the casework. There is one thing and one thing only that you can do, and that is stand on those green benches and speak for your constituents. So her point is, well, there's nobody who can speak up for my constituents if I don't do it. Therefore, and the only way I can do it, or I'm willing to do it with my very small son, is to take him in there. It has prompted a review of the rules. Does that sound reasonable to you? Obviously, other MPs who have become mums, they have opted to take maternity leave. And I'm sure some of them feel like, well, you know, I wasn't not doing my job for my constituents, I just had to do it. And that's what complicates this, I suppose, isn't it? The unique nature of that job.
I think that's right. And it's the unique nature of the job, and it's also the nature of parenthood. And, you know, it's not always so easy to either put a career on hold or a baby on hold. You know, you can't always find the right childcare to do the things your work demands, and it is a very unique job. And equally, you might not want to, because you might legitimately take the view that in the first 3 months, actually, you want that child with you. And that is a legitimate view for any parent to take. So I think, you know, we come back to the need to show thing and flexibility, whilst perhaps recognising that, you know, you wouldn't want all MPs bringing their kids every day into the Commons.
I can understand all of that. I do find it an interesting one, really. Some of our viewers are emailing and saying there's already quite a lot of big babies in the House of Commons as it is. So we might as well, add another tiny one in there. I suppose, look, just in a practical sense, if we're there debating, you know, the big issues of the day, it might be quite nice to not have a howling baby sitting on the seat behind you. It is ultimately a place of work. Can you understand why some people would be opposed to it? We could all work remotely, can't we? This is what I don't understand as well, right? Because, you know, we all have to work from home for a while. Can't you just zoom in?
No, against the rules.
Is it? Oh, well, there you go. Maybe we should have a rule change there as well.
So there.
No, what do you think? Can you understand why some people would say, look, you know, we can't, we shouldn't be having babies in the chamber?
Look, I absolutely understand that. And, you know, as I think I'm making clear, I think as a rule, you wouldn't want everyone doing that. But I think in exceptional circumstances, you know, let's show some understanding and tolerance, really, of people who are in a very difficult position. And it is a very difficult position being a new parent and having any job, frankly, let alone that job. I mean, I would really, really like to see you know, our politics open up to parents. I think we have seen over the last year and a half, that, you know, the impact on children of not having enough parents in politics. I agree. I don't think the issue, you know, the way to solve that is to let every politician bring their child into Parliament. I think, you know, there is, as I know has been pointed out, there's a crash there. I think, you know, more fundamentally, universal childcare for all new parents, men as well as women. This is an issue that affects many men as well as women.
I pointed out the unique nature of being a member of Parliament, but there's another reason, a positive reason why it's unique, because if you take maternity leave, one thing that is guaranteed, when you return, you're still going to be the MP. But for lots of ordinary mums, they find that they face maternity discrimination when they get back to the workplace, and suddenly there's a restructure, or that promotion that they'd always hoped for never really materialises. And maternity discrimination is I mean, it's illegal, but it happens, doesn't it, to lots of mums who return to the workplace after having little ones.
Yeah, of course it does. And I think, you know, I mean, I feel very strongly about this. I've got 2 kids, and actually it was precisely through fear of that reason that for my second child, I had my own business, and I took, I think, probably 2 months, a little bit off, and worked around it. And it was a disaster. It was awful. It was very stressful. I did do the thing where I brought a very young baby into the office, and the baby was, you know, there sort of sitting on the floor of the office, and it didn't really work for me. That's not to say it can't work for others, but I think just going, you know, back to what is the point here, Laura, the maternity rules, which obviously provide very generous allowances in some cases for women, actually mean that women are, you know, faced with these very long gaps out of the workplace, and ultimately that is not a good thing for women's careers. I think a lot of other countries, particularly the Nordic countries, have a far more sensible and equitable model where actually both parents gets to participate in those first, you know, formative and actually really lovely months of a child's life.
I think it's worth noting as well that the House of Commons does have a crash, apparently, and a lot of people are getting in touch to say she's on, you know, high 80s a year. She will have a relatively...
Low 80s a year, but
is it?
still a lot of money.
Yeah. A relatively generous expenses package as well, depending on what it is. And there is a crash there.
That's for your staff. You don't pocket any of that.
OK.
Just,
well,
you know.
I'm just saying.
One thing I know about.
I'm just saying. Anyway, no. Look, can't she either afford childcare or, you know, just put the child in the crash while she's debating stuff in Parliament? Is this a bit of virtue signalling, do we think?
I mean, look, I don't want to comment on that because I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that a mother with a 3-month-old baby is going to feel the need to prioritise the needs of that child. And, you know, babies don't work for a particular timetable all the time. They need feeding. You know, personally, I probably wouldn't have made the decision to bring a baby in, but I wasn't in her position. And, you know, none of us were. So I think just a little, maybe a bit less judgment, but also looking at, you know, what are the structures we can put in place to mean that actually women shouldn't have to do this.
Yeah, Molly, thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I'm sure our viewers will have done it as well. And good luck to you, Molly Kingsley.
Thank you.
They're co-founder of Parents Campaign Group, Us for Them.
Joining us next is an employment expert, James Townsend. Hi, James. Is the House of Commons just seriously and legally hopelessly out of date?
Not at all. There is no statutory right to bring a baby to work. So I don't think they're out of date. And actually, I think the person that's come out really well from all of this is Sir Lindsay Hoyle, because he said, look, our rules are there, but actually we're going to do a full review of the rules. We're moving into the 21st century. The House of Commons does have a crash. And I think, as you've mentioned, Stella Creasy's in a particularly privileged position. You yourself have just mentioned that when she finishes her maternity period, she's going to come back. Her job is secure. So I think hats off to Sir Lindsay Hoyle today, and we're obviously looking forward to hearing what will come of the review.
I mean, look, I initially thought that she was behaving a little bit like she's felt like she was the only woman to have ever had a child, you know, and that she's not the only one who's ever given birth. You know, a lot of women have had to deal with this kind of thing, haven't they? But I suppose maybe it has highlighted, you know, a moment of change. What's your general take really on whether or not, just as a matter of fact, I suppose, but whether or not babies should be in the chamber? I mean, it is essentially a place of work. It's a place of arguably the most important place of work in the country, isn't it?
That's here.
Should we? Apart from, well, yes, actually, sorry, how dare I? But you know, look, come on. Do we need to be debating things like, you know, a withdrawal from Afghanistan, and then you've got a screaming baby behind you?
There's always a balance to be struck, and the words used by the Speaker was that the Commons is a place for professional debate, and that debate needs to happen without disturbance. But he also talks about flexibility, and the Commons and employers generally should be flexible with staff or with MPs, and it's all about being reasonable and accommodating expectant mothers, new mothers, where you can. Clearly, if there is an important debate in a very packed chamber, most reasonable people are going to say, look, that isn't an appropriate place for a very young baby. You know, there are health and safety issues. You've got to think of the welfare of the child. But occasionally, it will be appropriate, no doubt. The review will probably bring this out. It might well be appropriate for a mother with her young child to attend the Commons for a debate. Obviously, if the child became distressed, etc., you'd hope that the mother would take them out. So we're looking forward to seeing how the rules are now going to be changed. But look, you're entirely right. I think sometimes in a place of work, it just isn't going to be appropriate for a very young baby to be in work. And you can look at different sectors of the economy here. You know, some employers outside of Parliament would be able to accommodate mothers with their babies. Some clearly wouldn't. It just wouldn't be suitable.
I think that argument would have more sway about it being a place for serious debate and discussion, and of course it is those things, but the way members of Parliament behave in the House of Commons chamber, booing and jeering and finger wagging and all the rest of it, I don't even think you'd notice a screaming baby in there. Certainly not during Prime Minister's question time.
Well, you've got particular experience on those sort of issues, which I don't, because generally most of my practice focuses on the employment. But look, I think that's a very, very valid and well-made point. But it comes down to being reasonable. And I think Sir Lindsay Hoyle, when I listened to his speech, really came across very, very well in the way that he's approaching this. He's approached it very much in the way that one would expect a professional person to approach matters like this, sensitively and with respect.
Let's just widen it out a little bit, just in general. Do you think there's enough done for new mothers in this country by employers? I know there are rules and laws in place, but I imagine, like with anything, there's always ways around those rules and laws, aren't there? Is enough being done for new mothers in the workplace?
There's a lot of statutory protection out there. I mentioned that there's no statutory right to bring your baby to work, but mothers who've recently had children can take emergency time off from work if it's needed. The Equality Act prohibits discrimination in respect of maternity. That's for during the maternity and after. And Parliament have enacted specific provisions that will make an otherwise unfair dismissal automatically unfair if the dismissal is, say, tainted with maternity discrimination. So there's a lot of employment protection out there for expectant mothers and new mothers. Additionally, HR departments all up and down the country have implemented policies and procedures to protect mothers. So I think we're in a much better position today than we were, say, a decade ago.
James Townsend, real pleasure to have you on the show. James Townsend, employment partner at Howard Kennedy. Thank you.
Yes, well, you have been emailing us in your drone.
Oh, I don't feel I'm going to come off well.
Well, it's all right. I think you emerged pretty well. It's on our main debate. Should private schools be banned? Well, Robert's been in touch. Private schools should be extended to allow more people the opportunities their education
gives. As long as it's free.
Yeah, well, basically make state schools better.
Elizabeth says, no, you should not do away with private schools. My parents would have sent my sister and I if they could have afforded it. Mine too, but what I'm saying is that's the problem with them.
Just a bit of a chip on your shoulder there, I think. I'll just...
Wait till we get off.
Anyway, Penelope says that if we get rid of private schools, then won't the rich just homeschool with nannies and tutors? I've not thought about that.
Maybe. Good
point.
What
do you think of homeschooling?
I mean, do you really want to go into this? There's another day. Karen says, what good would abolishing private schools achieve? Those parents that can afford it would spend their money employing tutors, so comprehensive would not benefit.
It is true, actually. Maybe. It is true. Penny says, make all state schools as accountable as the private ones.
And in our Twitter poll, 16% said yes to should private schools be abolished, while 84% said no.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's an interesting one, really, isn't it? I thought it would have been closer than that. I've got to be honest with you.
Did you really?
I did actually.
You're just saying that to make you feel better.
No,
I'm surprised by that because you don't strike me as a sensitive type.
Well, there we go. Well, look, thank you very much, everyone, of course, who's been getting in touch with us. It's been great to have you on board, and we'll be back again, won't we?
Tomorrow.
Well, yes, for more of this, you've obviously been watching to Piero and Halligan, but with me, Christys, on GB News, and make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m.
And is it Darren McCaffrey up next? I believe it is.
It is, yes, there you go.
OK, thanks for being with us.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello. I'll get on to today's weather in just a moment, but just flagging that at the end of the week, some very windy weather is likely and things are going to be turning colder again as well, which brings the threat of a bit of snow also. But back to today, low pressure is swinging its way to the north of the UK, and this cold front is driving south, introducing colder air across Scotland and Northern Ireland. But it does mean here it'll be a bit brighter through the afternoon with some sunshine. Lots of showers, though, packing into the north and the west. Mostly of rain at this stage, and we've got this line of rain on the weather fronts, clearing away from southern Scotland, but turning damp over northwest England, north and west Wales. Much of the south, dry and cloudy, 1 or 2 showers for Kent and the southwest. And temperatures here might creep up to double figures, but colder air is following on from this band of wet weather, this cold front. As it continues to track southwards through the evening, the rain could pep up for a time over South Wales and southwest England. Clearer skies following, and the showers turning more and more wintry over the hills of northern Scotland, even some snow to low levels for a time, and strong winds as well, and a much colder feel for Thursday morning. Temperatures in most towns and cities may just be above freezing, but it's going to feel cold with that wind. And then generally it's a fine and sunny day to come tomorrow for most. We'll keep wintry showers going over northern Scotland, although the winds may ease a little through the day.